Can I say smash that subscribe button?
Yeah, you can say that again in a minute.
Smash.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Rachel.
I'm Hannah.
And this is the You Talkin to Me podcast. Today we have a special guest with us here. And no, I don't have COVID and she doesn't have COVID. I'm just in a house with lots of cats. So if you're watching the YouTube video, yes, I'm wearing a mask. I cannot breathe without it in here. I will die. And outside is too cold to record outside this time. So there we go. So sorry about that. And yes, no, I don't have a microphone still. Okay. Emily is my sister. I'm at her home here in New Mexico, which is very exciting. And so she's going to be our guest today. Hannah, do you want to tell the people what we're watching? Well, what we reviewed.
We did watch a movie called The Net. It's not about sports. Might sound like it is, but it's not. It's about the internet. Okay. The Net stars Sandra Bullock, who plays Angela Bennett. Angela is well versed in computers and helps solve problems for Cathedral, a computer company. One day, she gets a big virus problem that her colleague wants to tell her about, but as he is coming to see her, he is killed. Angela goes on vacation and gets her identity stolen. She also goes on a date with a man who is part of the plan to take her down. She gets back to the US under the name of Ruth Marks, and she has to try to convince the police that she is actually Angela Bennett and has been a victim of a huge cybercrime. Will Angela be able to convince the police that she is who she is, or will they always believe she is Ruth?
The drama. Let me tell you, this movie was just drama after drama after drama. Emily, do you want to tell the people why we invited you onto this podcast particularly?
So it is well known within my friend groups and my family that while I do identify as straight, there is one exception and always will be, and it is Sandra Bullock. I love her. She's beautiful. She's like incredibly smart. She has a lot of like the same values that I do, but I just absolutely love her. And so Rachel was like, hey, we're going to watch a Sandra Bullock movie. And do you want to be part of it? And I was like, yes. I've never seen this movie. One of my favorite like early Sandra Bullock movies is 28 Days. But this one I had never seen, never really heard of. And I think there's a reason. But like it was a good, I thought she did a good job. I thought, with the script and everything, and like Rachel said, it was just like really dramatic. And I think it was way too long. I feel like it should have established the problem a little bit earlier, because all of us were under the assumption that the problem was going to be something different. I thought it was going to happen on a plane to Mexico when she goes there. I thought something was going to happen and she was going to have to, fix it. I don't know. But it felt like it wasn't written the best.
I thought it could have started with like, even like this would have been a little bit too late, but her trying to come back and her name is changed should have happened like within like 15 minutes, not like 45 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that should have been the inciting incident of the whole thing, where maybe she's in Mexico, she gets a call from her friend of like, oh, we really need you to work on this thing. Well, I'm on vacation, the first one in 6 months. And maybe she has this little fling
6 years.
Oh yeah, 6 years, sorry.
6 months.
And maybe she has a fling with this guy that we don't know is bad yet. And all of a sudden she gets back and all of this stuff is starting to happen to her. She can't, she doesn't have her ID, she doesn't have anything. And then we see him outside in the car, maybe changing her information. That could be fine. Like, I still think that is too obvious to know it's him. But I don't know. I just thought like it took so long to get to that part that I was like, holy crap, let's go. Like when we paused at one point, we were at 55 minutes and still had an hour left.
No, I got to like the 40-minute mark and I was like, I still had that much left of this movie. Oh God. And then when I was watching the second half, that seemed even longer. I remember I paused it again later and I still had 45 minutes left. And I was like, nah, there should be like 5 minutes left of this movie. We should be done. Not that the actors were bad or something. It's just the story was too drawn out. I think if they rewrote it now, obviously there'd be a lot of changes because technology has advanced significantly since the 90s. But I think also maybe it'd be shorter and more to the point.
It's hard to say depending on who kind of creates it on whether it'll be shorter, but I think they would know how to amp it up the like action of it. But that's so hard when you have a film that takes a lot of place on the internet and is trying to tell you all the bad things that can happen on the internet because there's not that much action. The editor was great though. Like when she's clicking and stuff and the different like movements and where they zoom in and like the different shots that they get and put together did make it seem more interesting and gave my eyes places to go. But other than that, it was like rough.
In a way, I kind of miss how like bright and fun like the internet looked like at that point. Like when she orders pizza and it's like, hey, congrats. I'm like, that would be so much more fun than like tracking like whores like bringing my Domino's to my apartment, which is like basically how it goes at this point.
Yeah, also, I didn't know you could order food online in the 90s. Like, am I just stupid? Like, we didn't
Well, to
really
be fair, none of us were really, I mean, we were alive, Rachel and I were, but we weren't like alive.
Alive in
You
the
were
90s.
alive too. Were you in 99, baby?
98.
Okay, 98. Sorry, I thought you were like younger than us. So 98. You're only 2 years younger than Rachel?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
How long have you been friends?
Since college. But for some reason, I thought you had a bigger gap. Maybe how many years apart were you in school?
Just two, almost 3, but our older siblings are like a lot older than us. So that's where the big age gap comes from.
I just thought, I guess, that it was 3 years apart. And then, so I thought you were a 99 baby, which I guess suppose would still mean that you were born in the 90s. So I'm sorry.
But I just, even like in the early 2000s, though, I feel like you had to call to order anything. You know what I mean? Like it just seems really, I know she's like tech savvy and she knows everything, but like those companies, I guess LA, maybe she lived near Silicon Valley or something, but it just seemed very unusual. Or like booking your flight online and stuff. Usually you got to call somebody for that.
Also, how did she book the flight like the day before she was going? And like there were that many open seats in the program.
I was wondering if she was like hacking the system. Like I was wondering the whole time if when she was ordering pizza and the plane thing, if she was like doing something so that she would get a better deal, or like, oh, maybe there wasn't a seat available and then she got it because she like redid the system. And there wasn't any evidence of that, but that's where my mind was going. But yeah, because could you do that? Because I feel like even I remember booking flights a few years ago and you couldn't choose as much as you can now for booking a flight. Like now you can choose which seat you want. If you want to upgrade your seat, you can see where you're sitting on the airplane, if the seat next to you is going to be taken or not, you know. But in the 90s,
seems a little ambitious, but we also, like Hannah said, we're babies basically at that point.
Well, maybe they wanted to like kind of prolong the technology life of the movie, so they made things that weren't available yet but they thought were going to, because I know a lot of movies have done that where they try to like create it so it's more universal towards what period of time the people are watching it. Of course, like
that's hilarious if that's what happened. And it's like you can order pizza online
and they guessed it, know.
That's funny. This film, like, it opens up with something that is significant, but I thought was going to be a lot more significant than it was, I guess, of this man. He gets news of some impending doom and then calls his wife and talks to his son, and
I forgot about him.
Gives them like some like goodbyes basically, but like doesn't tell them goodbye, and then like kills himself in a park. And you find out later that he was like diagnosed with AIDS or something. And then later you find out that it was actually a misdiagnosis because somebody like hacked into his hospital records or something and changed it because they probably wanted to overthrow this guy.
Which ends up being the same guy that harms Angela. He talks about it and he says the reason they targeted him was because he's a really big homophobe.
Oh
And
yeah.
so they gave him the news that he had AIDS, which back then was considered the gay disease or whatever. And so they
And a
told
death
him he
sentence.
had it. What?
And it was considered a death sentence too at that point, I think. Maybe, but not by the 90s. I don't know how quick they got the advancements, but
so they were targeting him because he, I think, was the main person who could compete with that guy's boss. His name was like Devlin or something like that. And their boss keeps coming out saying that he has this great security system that can make sure no one hacks you or whatever, but he really has like a loophole where he can get into any software system ever, basically. And if you're seeing live news things where the airport's having malfunctions and like all the flights are being canceled or delayed, and then it like comes back, they're like on time, delayed, hijacked. That's what they keep saying. And then there was something with, where were the other security problems? There was one like in the
Wall
government.
Street was one of them, like
Wall
the stocks
Street.
crashed.
yeah, and then there's like some electric grid, I think, in Atlanta for sure were the other ones. And then the hospital obviously had gotten hacked and things like that. And then this guy, it's Jeff Gregg, is the owner of the Gatekeeper program. And then Jack Devlin is
Praetorian.
the guy on the ground, Praetorian's Jeff Gregg still.
Oh, okay.
But Jack Devlin's the guy on the ground, like the one romancing Sandra Bullock, and the one that like was supposed to kill her, like all these different things. Like he's the face of it on the ground, and then Jeff Gregg is like doing all the PR work basically of this program by causing these problems and then solving them. Oh, there's also a bank that got hacked, like all of these certain banks in Chicago except one that was protected by Gatekeeper. So
yeah, also I thought the one thing that didn't make any sense and was completely, I think, irrelevant to the entire plot was when he's like, I was attracted to you, I'm still attracted to you. They never really built up a romance between the two of them. Like it always just felt like manipulation, at least on the part of him. So I was like, this is unnecessary information. Just like leave him being like a, like a dick, and have him be just manipulating her. It made so much more sense that way.
Yeah, I think he seemed too much like a bad guy right away. Even like he looked like a bad guy
from the second he ordered a drink.
From the second he ordered the drink, exactly. And then was like coming over to her and like talking to her about computers and stuff. I just knew he was like, they did not be subtle at all about this. And so I was like, absolutely not. But they did, like, if they had just skipped that first meeting talking about computers and trying to figure out what she does and all that stuff, I think it could have looked like a cute romance, honestly. But I think everyone was just skeptical from the beginning. Plus, they showed that one shot of that guy in the bushes, like looking at her,
like hanging out.
And the guy that ended up stealing the purse.
And then gets like killed right away.
Yeah, because this Jack guy he meets Angela on the beach, and she's trying to be careful with her computer to not get sand in it. And then she's like doing something, and he orders the same drink that she gets, which is something that has an onion in it. I don't remember what it's called, but they do that. And then he comes over and starts talking about computers to her, and was saying how he is just like her. Like, he's like, isn't this weird? Like, we're in the most beautiful beach in the world, and yet all we want to do is, and she's like, where can I hook up my modem? And first of all, that beach was not the most beautiful beach I've ever seen in my life. Okay, that was a subpar beach. But then he starts talking, and so the audience knows, and maybe it's supposed to be set up that way, that we all know it's foreshadowing, or like we know whatever, that third wall is broken or something, where we know and she doesn't know. it's too obvious. And then they go on the date and this guy comes and takes her bag. And then Jack pretends to go get the bag from this guy. But what happens is he finds the disc and then he shoots the guy who stole the bag, and he cuts his hand open so it looks like he was harmed in the process. And then Angela and Jack are back on this boat that he took her out on, and she's bandaging him up, but she's like complaining that her cards and things were stolen. She's like, oh, look at me, I'm so terrible because I'm complaining about a MasterCard, and here you are, you could have died. And we're like, ew, don't save this man.
Also,
Gross.
like, your IDs and stuff were stolen. You can't get back very easily, but apparently you can. I didn't know you could apply for a temporary visa. But
I mean, this is pre 9/11, so security
true.
was pretty not a non-existent, but like a lot more easy to manipulate or get your way through.
yeah. Also, who put in her application for her under Ruth Marks if it wasn't her?
I think it's Jack.
I know, but like, how was he able to? I understand again.
Hacks the computer.
That's true. Because at this point, when she's trying to get back, she ended up in the hospital for 3 days because she was on a boat with Jack. They just had the sex. And then like he goes down to like get the gun. Or no, he already got the gun.
He needed to refill the clip. He got a new clip for the gun in the basement and put the disc away.
Oh yeah. And then he comes up and Angela had found the gun at that point and has it
No,
on
because
her
he went
lap.
to go get a drink. They were having sex. They were done
Oh.
with sex. And then she was like, I'm just nervous. I'm sorry. I can't stop talking. He's like, would you like a drink right now? And she's like, that'd be really nice. And he goes down. She grabs his jacket because she's cold. And she finds the gun in the pocket.
Mm-hmm. And then he tries to pull it off like, oh yeah, it's for like fishing or whatever. And she goes, with a silencer? And he goes, yeah.
Yeah, like shark fishing.
And so it was like she had removed the clip from it at that point, and he tries to shoot her, but she's got the clip, throws it in the water, knocks him out with something, a wine bottle or champagne bottle or something, and then tries to escape on the lifeboat. She eventually does. It's a close call, but she gets away from that boat, but then runs into like these rocks or something and knocks herself out for 3 days. And then she tries to leave and applies for her temporary visa so she can get back to the US and realizes it's under Ruth Marks.
No, she applies for it, but they pull her database from like the California driver's records or whatever. And that's where it's coming up as Ruth Marks. And because she would have never like submitted it under her name, but when she probably gave like her social security or something like that, they pulled up Ruth Marks instead of Angela Bennett.
Oh yeah. And so that's where it all starts, with this name confusion. And she kind of wants to go against it, but then realizes this is the only way back into the US. And so she really doesn't have a choice. And so she's like, YOLO, I'll just go back.
And she tries to go back to the hotel where she was staying. And the hotel is looking her up, and she's like, or the guy's like, you already checked out. And she's like, no, I didn't. I've been in the hospital. I would have known if I checked out. I didn't check out. So the guy obviously checked herself out of there too. So she lost all of her everything, because any luggage she had with her and all of her passports and everything are gone. She does make it back into the US. And when she gets to her house, she's taking a cab there because her car is gone too when she gets back to the airport. And then there's a for sale sign in her yard. And the neighbor apparently doesn't even know her to be able to confirm if it's her or not. And of course, the other added detail is when they want to use, or she wants to use her mom as a source of someone to be like, oh, this is my child. Her mom has Alzheimer's and she doesn't remember who Angela is. So it's just like the perfect target, because how do you know that this person is telling the truth or not?
They do kind of build that up too, when she's like talking to him, like, or well, no, when she's first talking to like Alan, who is like her previous ex that kind of helps her out. She was like, I'm the perfect target. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. Like I don't really have anybody in my life and stuff like that. So it's like she like kind of alludes to the fact that they have been probably following or like stalking her or like knowing all her information for a really long time previous to this. And so she's probably been on their radar, and she was the absolute perfect target for it.
Yeah, they knew everything about her. She said from her drink to her favorite movies to what she said in a chat room. Like they literally knew everything, which made me think that it was one of the guys in the chat room at first when Jack Devlin started like listing off the exact thing that she had typed to somebody about what she looks for in a man. And he like became that person basically for her, which made him the perfect like seducer, which I kind of liked that it was the guy who had to do the seducing, because whenever you see like a spy movie or a thriller movie, it's always this woman and she's got to be all hot and sexy the whole time. So I liked that it was a guy this time. I also liked that they didn't make Sandra Bullock like ugly or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's a computer nerd. Like she wasn't like wearing like high-end like super fancy makeup and like a smoky eye or nothing, but when she was on that beach I was like,
yeah, but I mean, she wasn't like really wearing any makeup or anything, and her clothing like wasn't super extravagant or anything. She was just kind of like her, but she was pretty, and they didn't like feel the need to slap on a pair of glasses and make her nerdy.
yeah, she could just be Sandra Bullock acting as Angela Bennett.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes they try to go for such a nerdy look or whatever, or maybe over the top, so pretty. And not that she's not very pretty, but it wasn't like they had to make it look like they were making her look pretty, if that makes sense. Emily briefly touched on her person she was with, ex-boyfriend, I guess, and we find out that he was actually her psychiatrist, therapist, one of the two, and then they get together and now they're not together anymore. And I'm not sure why he's popping pills or if those pills were supposed to be for Angela, but he has a pill bottle that seems important. We never get any backstory on it, but then eventually Jack switches his prescription. He obviously hacks the computer system at the pharmacy and puts penicillin pills as his prescription instead of whatever he's supposed to have. And he's allergic to penicillin, so he ends up in the hospital. And long story short, he does die. It's like, there's another body. There's quite a few deaths and murders that happen. And even Angela kills some people and is just very casual about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump to the end real quick, just like when you talked about her killing people, because so there's someone though real quick being Angela Bennett while she's Ruth Marks, because when they call Cathedral or something, they have someone as her in the building, which she's never worked at the building before. So there is someone playing her, which I thought was also smart. Like that's a good thing to do. And then so the Angela Bennett in quotations, like the fake one, and Jack Devlin, they're working together, obviously. They start chasing Angela through this computer conference building, and Jack ends up accidentally shooting the fake Angela Bennett. And then later, Angela kills Jack with a fire extinguisher, and like he falls off the edge and dies and stuff. But then at the end, they're like, Angela Bennett helped on the news. They're like, Angela Bennett helped find the, hacker of this whole thing, blah, blah. And then they're like, in unrelated news, there's 2 dead bodies at the,
Conference.
The conference, Ruth Marks, which we find out they just switched identities, which was, I'm sure, pretty obvious. And then Jack, was it an unidentified body?
Yeah.
Why didn't she just admit to killing him? Because he was trying to kill her. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's going to hurt you in the long run. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was confused about that too, and I'm pretty sure they also said that he had a gunshot wound, and I don't remember her shooting him.
I think the woman had the gunshot wound.
Oh, okay. I just remember hearing the gunshot wound, and I thought it was the guy. Because what happens is this guy is pretending to be an FBI agent, and he gets Angela out of jail, which I guess we skipped over that part. She does get brought into jail because when she is Ruth Marks, she has this laundry list of things that she's committed in the past, like she's out on drugs and prostitution or something like that. And so they bring her in and she's trying to tell the woman who's going to be her lawyer that like all this is false and she's not that person, and she's trying to convince her that she's actually Angela Bennett, and this lady's just not buying it, which I don't think I would either, because like what, especially because she has a history of drug use. You're going to be thinking like, okay, she's just cuckoo cuckoo, like she's trying to come up with any story, right? um and then she gets out of jail by this guy who says he's an FBI agent, and she's driving and the guy's like saying, oh yeah, we've been trying to get these guys for, I don't know, like 19 years, I don't know, it was a long time. And then all of a sudden he slips up though, because he says something that he wouldn't know because she hasn't revealed, which is the disc got destroyed in Mexico. Did you make a copy before that? And she's like, wow, you guys are good. Like she catches on. And then she's driving with this guy and she's like, sticks her foot on the gas and trying to steer the car to crash. And he's like, we're gonna die. And then she unbuckles him and crashes the car into who but Jack. And I'm like, why was he there?
And he shoots the guy. Like, I thought that the FBI guy died because of the car crash, but they said that he had a bullet wound in his head. And I did see it, but I thought it was just like he had hit his head on something. Like, of course he
That's what
got
I thought
shot.
too. That's what I was talking about, was the bullet wound. So Jack shot him. Oh, okay. That's where I was confused, because I was like, I saw it on his head. I thought he hit the steering wheel or something. I don't know. But he's dead. And then Jack like or backs up into a car to go chase Angela, and she's on foot. And so she's trying to hide. And then she has a cell phone that she took from that fake FBI guy. And you can tell that Jack is trying to track her, and eventually she gives it to, maybe that was a different part actually. She took a phone from her therapist, but she gives it to a homeless man, which was a good play, so that because she knew Jack was going to be tracking it, and she gave it to a homeless man.
This whole movie is just like scare tactics for like not using the internet or something. I feel like it very well, like those DARE programs that you get in middle school, like don't do drugs, right? Like that's what this felt like, was like a movie made specifically for like scaring younger generations, and older generations are honestly the ones that are more likely to be hacked, but into like not putting your information online and stuff like that. And then I'm like watching it in 2022 technically, and like we're ordering everything online, our credit cards are online, we apply to jobs online, putting our social security numbers out there. Like, I don't know, we're putting all of our information out there, and honestly I feel just as safe. I get all these spam emails. I'm like, it's probably because I put my email address on that one weird thing. Oh well, I'll just delete them.
This feels like it could have been a perfect Lifetime movie, because like the meme is that Lifetime movies are just like scaring white mothers, middle-aged mothers, into like protecting their daughters or whatnot. And that's exactly what this felt like. It felt like, oh, all you Midwestern white moms, like, don't let your children go on the internet because they will somehow hack a cyber terrorist organization and be like hunted down by bounty hunters.
Yeah, and you can tell that the internet is the scary part multiple times. One, the movie's called The Net and not like escaping the Praetorians or something like weird, right? It's like, it's specifically called The Net for a reason, okay? Two, she says at this one point, she's like, you're just a shadow online. You're a shadow of yourself online. And like, all your information's out there. They knew all of this stuff about me because of this and this and this, and they could track me down. And like, she knows how to track people down too. And obviously, like, in the wrong hands, anything is dangerous. Like, in the wrong hands, like, literally anything can be bad. So it just definitely, there's just so many things that was like, It's not Jack or Jeff Gregg or anybody that's the bad guy. It's the internet. The internet is the reason any of this existed. So people don't kill people. The internet kills people.
Which obviously there are things that can be terrible with the internet, right? But there's also so many perks to the internet. You can connect with people, you can do things more quickly, you can find out information, which can also be a downside. But I guess I believe in the internet and in technology advances. And yes, anyone can get their identity stolen, but that still happened just with credit cards. Like people would steal a credit card and use it as their own, pretend that that was theirs. And so I think there's always going to be people out there, no matter if you have technology or not, that are going to do bad things and try to steal your identity or hack into places, but that doesn't mean that we should always be living in fear. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, internet like has like all those perks and whatnot, but like I do understand like why people do get scared because when I was like a freshman in high school, I sought like a teen depression chat room on the internet, and it was really nice. It was really fun in terms of like being able to have people that were like you, that had the same issues, whatnot. And you hear all those things like don't give personal information. So I made, my username and everything something that I hadn't used for anything else. And I also like never gave my personal information and never said my actual name. Nobody ever did that. There was moderators in the group. And then suddenly like one night I was on it and there was this individual who like was like talking back to me or whatnot, like just normal, and was like, oh haha, that's really funny, Emily. And I was like, I had never said that my name was Emily. I mean, my username was MJCo14, because my name is Emily Jordan Cox. And
she's 14.
Yeah, no, 14 is my favorite number, so I just use it. But I now that's like my Instagram handle, but like before it never was. Like I had different names for everything. And then I was like, oh, good try. It's actually Emma. And they were like, no, it's Emily Cox. And I was like, haha, it's actually like Emma Jane Cooper, but like you're really close. I can see how you can get that. And he was like, no, you live in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I was like, oh no. And I like closed everything and I was like bawling because I thought this guy was going to be like outside the window, like trying to kill me. And so I'd like run into my mom's room and I was like, Mom. And she was like, what? And I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want to hear like, oh, I told you so. The internet's a scary place, even though I did everything she told me to, which was never to give any personal information, never. And I was like, oh, I just had a bad dream and stuff like that. She was like, oh, okay, I'll like stay up with you or whatnot until you go to bed. But after that, I never went back on the group chat. But even so, like even having that, so there was a part in the movie where he starts reading like the things that she put in the chat room that only people in the chat room would have known. And she's like sitting there with like big eyes or whatever. And I knew that feeling of suddenly feeling like you weren't as anonymous as you thought you were. But even knowing all of that, like I'm still on the internet. Like I'm even still using that as my handle. Like I feel like you can't. I mean, it's been like almost 10 years and he hasn't killed me yet, so I don't think he's going to. But so it's probably Rachel. Rachel was probably the person who was doing it. But you kind of can't at this point not use the internet and not utilize it, especially like in this climate. I'm still working from home, so like there's no way I couldn't have the internet or couldn't be on it. So
yeah, I honestly wonder, we have an aunt who doesn't have any internet in her house. I mean, it's our great aunt, but like I don't understand how she survives. I mean, it just seems like impossible at this point, but I mean, that's all she ever knew, right? Like growing up. So she doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah, our grandma was the same way. And it's just kind of like they don't really have cell phones or whatnot. So all their information is on the TV. So when they hear something, they like call you to be like, ow. Yeah. One time I got one that was like, my grandma was like, Emily, were you in Berlin? And I was like, No, well, I have been now, but like at the time I did like an exchange program in Germany.
Yeah, like 2 years prior to this call, she was
Yeah.
in Germany for an exchange program.
But like in the complete other way than Berlin. And she was like, well, they just drove a bus through Berlin, like through like this town square to Christmas market. And I was like, okay. Like, one, I was never at Berlin, but two, I was not in Berlin at that moment. So there's no way that I could have been hit by a bus at this point. But she like had to call you. She was so frantic. So like she never got her news like the same way we did, which is like really fast, like the second it happens on the internet or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's always just funny.
Speaking of which, getting news immediately. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when this is being recorded, a couple days ago, we had gone on this tram car up this mountain, which like they're connected by a wire, you know, like you see those, sometimes they go up the mountain. Okay, well, we did that. We went up and down. It was kind of scary. But we went up to the mountain. That's where we saw snow for the first time while we were here. And then it did snow a couple days later. But then a few days after we had done that, Emily gets news that a tram car at the probably the exact ones we were in, because there's only two, got stuck overnight with people in it.
21 people in it.
On the mountain, just hanging there because of icy conditions. One,
for about 15 hours.
Yeah, overnight with, luckily there was like, there's always a person that works there with you, and they know like there are emergency blankets and water on the thing, because it has been stopped 5 times previously, like in all the years.
Now 6.
And I just like it's not that scary. Like, it is scary in my mind to hear about it, but it's more scary knowing that you did it like days ago before this happened. But I mean, we wouldn't have been on that tram because we were smart enough to know, especially Emily here, like is smart enough to know not to go on it, because we wouldn't even go to a part of town that's higher up because it's going to be extra windy, extra snowy compared to where we are. We would have been on a freaking mountain 10,000 feet in the air. Like, that's stupid. Not that they were stupid, but the workers should have closed it down, honestly.
That's insane.
It was scary.
Yeah, it's weird to know about things like that. So like obviously there's a risk in anything you do, and like do you still do it? Like I was thinking about that with zip lining when you said that. Like I know that a certain amount of people die every year from zip lining, but that doesn't mean I haven't gone and let go and hung upside down, because it's like, why not? You know? But that's the same thing with the internet. Obviously things can happen, things can go wrong, but honestly, people, with the things that we have nowadays, like someone can hack into your watch, into your phone, into your computer, into your TV, into your fridge. People have smart fridges, into your microwave. I mean, you name it, your car, you name it, someone can hack into it. Your clocks, probably, I don't know, like anything can be hacked into. And so basically, if you don't want to be a victim of something like that, then you would literally have to be living under a rock, I think, because you'd have to have no technology, which I don't think is possible. I mean, it could be. But even my grandma, who's 87, like she has an iPhone, she does all the news on there, she has multiple Alexas. I mean, she has it all. And she's still scared of people finding out her identity. She won't do online banking or things like that, but she'll at least have a cell phone and an email and stuff like that.
That's so funny. I had to help a couple set up an email one time because they wanted to sign up for Best Western Rewards, but you can't really without an email. And I had to like not only go to the computer with them over in the lobby and like go to gmail.com and like set it up for them. I had to write down like all the steps, like open internet browser, type in gmail.com, click the sign in button. Like I had to do all that for them. Like it's so interesting, like what things come so naturally to like us who've literally grown up in it, and then the people who have to learn everything along the way or like adapt. Like I can understand that being the scary part, is everything's changing, everything's going into this one scary thing. I mean, I don't even understand how the internet works. I just know it exists, and like I've tried Googling it and it scares me every time. I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, I think that's like one of the benefits of our generation. Like, you know, we're like the cuspers. Like, we're not quite millennials, not quite Gen Z, so we're just kind of there.
We're literally called snowflakes.
But
so,
like,
there's that.
And we're zillennials is also
Yeah.
a term that I've heard.
I've heard cuspers too, but I think one of those things is that, like, you know, we still remember like landlines, and I still remember boxy computers. We grew up in a time period where, you know, we went through probably the most drastic advancements in technology during just our like childhood. So I feel like we're super adaptable in terms of figuring things out, because like now, you know, like the people who are growing up, the smartphones don't change a whole lot. They just get like better, like faster, or they have better cameras. But like, you know, I still remember when everybody had the Motorola Razors, and it was like the coolest thing in the entire world. I remember the first person to get a smartphone was Dylan, and it was
the first
like
person I knew was Alex Sparta. Shout out to Alex Sparta, who probably doesn't listen to this. He had an iPhone 3, and we all played Temple Run on his phone, like in like musical practice or something.
I think I had an iPhone 2, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
it
I
was an
remember like
iPhone.
the half smartphones where like you like flip it up and it still has the keyboard, even though you literally have a smartphone that would have the keyboard on it. But okay. But like we grew up with all of this like really fast changes in our technology. And I mean, even some people I know remember dial-up internet, and how to function all of that. So I feel like we're so much more adaptable in terms of other generations, even than like Gen Z, even the people who are like growing up right now. I feel like just throw something at us, we'll figure it out at this point, because we just have to, because it's been changing so much. But also when you're younger, you're more likely to be able to absorb information and also learn things. That's why learning languages when you're young is really great, because it's just so much easier to pick it up.
Your brain's a sponge.
But I think that's also a benefit to us, is like knowing not to do certain things. Like when something seems like fraud, I know it right away. Like I'll get emails and I'll be like, obviously I'm not going to send it to this Nigerian prince's widow, you know, like I'm not going to send money to them.
But her husband just died.
They'll be like, I know you are a God-fearing individual, Emily. And I'll be like,
well,
sure.
I almost got scammed when looking at apartments in LA, and like the first person who did it, I was just like confused. Like I would be like, oh, hey, you know, can you send pictures or something? I'm going to be moving there in August, like blah, blah, blah. And they sent back this thing like, oh, I'm actually in Phoenix right now. And I forgot to give the keys. Like I actually have them on me because my mom is dying of cancer and stuff. And I was like, they said, but you can feel free to drive by the neighborhood, see if you like the place and stuff like that. And I was like, you didn't like give the keys to anybody, like nobody can like get into the apartment, like that's pretty sketchy or whatever. And then another person did it like in Phoenix, mom's sick, don't have the keys, like and it had to have been a different person. Like I was like, I literally just said like F you like horrible human, like I don't know what I said, but like I was just like, you're the worst, like for lying about this, like F you. But yeah, it happens all the time. You just gotta look for the clues.
Yeah, I'd say that we're better at deciphering what is fraud or not, because I know my grandma gets tricked. Or my sister-in-law's parents were tricked and they actually paid money. And I was like, oh, why would you do that? But I don't know. I feel like we talked about a lot of various things. Anything else you want to add about this movie? I think I would rate it. What would I rate it? Maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. It wasn't bad.
What about you? I'm going 5.
I'll rate it as, I would have normally probably rated it like a 4 or 5, but Sandra Bullock's absolute beauty raised it to a 6.
That's where I was at. I was like, she raised the bar for me. But,
she's so beautiful. I can't. Also, her voice is so nice. I love her voice. Whatever. I'm gonna marry her. So Hannah, you can't.
Rude.
Technically, she's not married, but she is in a very committed relationship with 2 children. And as much as I hate
who
kids,
is she in a relationship with?
I don't know, some guy. But like, even though she has 2 children and I absolutely hate children, I would be the best stepmom in the entire world for these kids. She also adopted both of her children, which I 100% support. So, what about you? How'd you rate it?
I'm giving it a 5.
That's it.
Brian Randall. For you. No.
But also, I love their relationship because she's like, I don't need to get married. Like, in order to be in love with somebody, I don't need to be married. Like, who needs that? It's just a piece of paper kind of thing. And I also very support that. And she also just doesn't want to give birth, which I also do not ever want to give birth. So
Same. I don't even know if I want children, honestly.
yeah, no, I don't. I already have kids. They're my cats. And they
I
absolutely
don't want
love
those
their aunt.
either.
They love their aunt, even though they kill her. So
That's my brother has a dog, and if he licks me or gets like any saliva on me, I get hives. But he's obsessed with me, and I'm like, stop licking me.
I know they're rubbing
like,
up on
"Damn."
her because they wanted to get fed from her
Yeah,
this morning.
before this podcast, I'm like, I need to go stand outside for a bit to clear my freaking nostrils. Anyway, he's a photographer from Portland. That's who.
Ooh.
I don't need to
Randall
know
is.
about him because he's going to be history when she meets me. So just saying. Sorry, Hannah.
All right. I'm gonna run through the social media and get this baby wrapped up. All right. If you want to email us, send it to you talking to me podcast@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on Instagram, which you should, just because I said so, follow us at youtalkingtome.podcast. If you want to follow our Twitter, which is basically just our Instagram, but I just click the post on Twitter button every time. Follow us at youtalkingtome11 because we're both number 1 and not Emily. And if you want, and you should, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You get to see Emily's face this time because she's on a podcast that actually has video instead of just the You Talking to Me logo the whole time. So you can see what she looks like. This is my sister.
Hi.
Subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, and comment on all of our videos. And go give us some good positivity on all the other podcast sites.
Yes. I think you covered it all. Emily, thank you so much for being on this podcast. It's been a fun time having you on, even if we are in an argument over who can be with Sandra. I'm just saying.
Me. So.
It's gonna be a race. Whoever, maybe she didn't sell the place. She's just Airbnb-ing it out in South Carolina.
I could help her sell it. I'm a real estate agent, so
Whoever comes visit me first, I'll take you over there.
When she meets me, she won't want to sell it because we'll live in it together.
Oh God.
okay.
All right, I'm Rachel.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Emily.
And this was the You Talking to Me podcast. Bye.
Make sure to smash that subscribe button.
Oh God.